The appraiser's hands trembled as he lifted the piano leg. Inside the hollow compartment, rolled tight as cigarettes, were bearer bonds. Hundreds of them. His voice cracked. Ms. Reeves, do you have any idea what these are worth? Jen stared at the yellowed papers spilling across her aunt's dusty living room floor. Numbers swam before her eyes. $10,000. $50,000. $100,000. Denomination after denomination, issued between 1968 and 1982. These are bearer bonds. Whoever holds them owns them. They're negotiable. And if these are legitimate. He pulled out his phone, fingers flying across a calculator app. Ms. Reeves, you're looking at approximately $372 million. The room tilted. Jen sat down hard on the floor, her worn sneakers squeaking against the hardwood. For weeks earlier, the eviction notice was neon yellow this time, as if the previous three hadn't been clear enough. Jen peeled it off her apartment door, the adhesive leaving a sticky residue that matched the residue of her entire life lately. 72 hours to vacate. She'd known it was coming. When you're $4,300 behind on rent and your bank account shows $89.34, the math isn't complicated. Inside the studio, her daughter Lily sat at the kitchen table, which was also the dining table, the desk, and the craft station, working on homework. She was 9. She deserved a bedroom, a home, a mother who could afford to buy her new shoes when the soles wore through. Mom, what's for dinner? Jen opened the cabinet. Rice, a can of beans, some tired carrots, fried rice, your favorite. Lily smiled, and Jen's heart cracked a little more. Kids were so easy to fool, so quick to believe that everything was fine. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Bill collectors had her number memorized, but something made her pick up. Jennifer Reeves? This is Patterson and Associates. We're handling the estate of Beatrice Reeves. I understand she was your aunt. Aunt B died. Jen's stomach dropped. She hadn't seen her aunt in 2 years, maybe 3. Aunt B had been the family eccentric, the one who'd never married, who'd worked as a bank teller for 40 years and lived in the same tiny bungalow since 1970. The one who'd collected strange things. Buttons, postcards, broken instruments. 2 weeks ago, peacefully, in her sleep, she left a will. You're the sole beneficiary. Jen almost laughed. What did she have? Her house was barely standing last time I saw it. The house, yes. And its contents. Can you come by Thursday at 3 p.m.? Jen looked at her schedule. She worked data entry from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then she had a shift at Morrison's Coffee from 4 to 11 p.m. I can do 2:30. We'll make it work. The lawyer's office smelled like old paper and air freshener. Mr. Patterson was 70 if he was a day, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Your aunt was very specific in her instructions. The house at 1647 Maple Street goes to you, along with all contents. She left one note. He slid a sealed envelope across the desk. Jen opened it. Aunt Bea's spidery handwriting covered a single card. The piano stays with the house. Don't let them take it. Love, Aunt B. What piano? I believe there's an old upright in the living room. Hasn't been tuned in decades, from what I understand. Jen remembered it vaguely. A massive, ugly thing that took up half the living room. The veneer was peeling. Half the keys didn't work. Aunt B used to stack mail on it. The house needs work, Mr. Patterson continued. The roof leaks. The foundation has cracks. But it's paid off. No mortgage. Property taxes are current through the year. A house. Jen's throat tightened. Even a falling down house was more than she had now. She visited the property the next day, during the 30-minute break between jobs. The bungalow sagged like a tired old woman. Paint peeled in lawn strips. The porch steps creaked ominously. But the key turned in the lock. Inside smelled like dust and time. Aunt Bea's furniture sat exactly where Jen remembered it, doilies on. Every surface, photos in mismatched frames, and there, dominating the small living room, the piano. It was even uglier than she remembered. The wood was water-stained. The bench was missing a leg. Someone had written "free" on a piece of cardboard and leaned it against the side. Jen's phone rang. Her mother. Jennifer, I heard you inherited BA's disaster of a house. Please tell me you're selling it immediately. That neighborhood has gone downhill, and the repairs would cost more than it's worth. I'm thinking about moving in. Lily and I need. And that hideous piano. You'll pay someone to haul it away, right? I offered to take it when B was alive, God knows why. Maybe I could have donated it. But she acted like it was the Mona Lisa. Crazy old woman. Jen looked at the piano. At Aunt Bea's note, still folded in her pocket. Don't let them take it. I'm keeping the piano. Her mother's laugh was sharp. Jennifer, you can't even afford rent, and you're going to keep a broken piano nobody wants? You're as crazy as she was. They argued for 10 more minutes before Jen hung up. Then her brother called. Her sister. Her cousin Mark. All of them saying the same thing. Sell the house. Dump the piano. Stop being impractical. But Jen thought about Aunt B, alone in this house for 50 years, working her bank teller job and collecting her strange treasures. Aunt B, who'd always been dismissed as odd, eccentric, crazy. Aunt B, who'd left Jen her only house and asked for one thing in return. I'm keeping it, Jen said aloud, to the empty room. The piano sat silent, holding its secrets. Moving into Aunt Bea's house took 3 trips in Jen's dying Honda. Everything they owned fit in garbage bags and plastic bins. Clothes, Lily's toys, the hot plate, the good towels. The studio apartment landlord watched from the window, arms crossed, as if Jen might steal the carpet on her way out. The bungalow was freezing. The heat worked sporadically, coughing to life and dying again like an old man with emphysema. Jen set up their air mattress in the bedroom that didn't have water stains on the ceiling. Lily didn't complain. She never did. Mom, can I play the piano? It doesn't work, honey. Most of the keys are broken. But Lily climbed onto the wobbling bench anyway and pressed middle C. The note came out strangled, discordant, but Lily grinned like she'd made magic. Jen's phone buzzed. A text from her sister Claire. Mom says you're actually keeping that ugly piano. Are you having a breakdown? Do you need me to come get Lily until you're thinking clearly? Jen deleted it. The next morning, a truck pulled up. 2 men got out, a father and son team, according to the logo on their shirts. Fuller and Son Piano Movers. We're here for the piano, the older man said. Your mother hired us. Said it was being donated. My mother doesn't live here. I do. The piano isn't going anywhere. The man checked his phone, frowning. She said you'd be difficult. Look, lady, we're paid through the day. Your mom offered us $300 to haul this thing. It's going. It's my house. My piano. You need to leave. The son stepped forward, bigger, meaner looking. We drove an hour. We're not leaving empty-handed. Jen's hands shook, but she stood her ground. Touch my property, and I'm calling the police. The standoff lasted 5 minutes before they left, the older man muttering about crazy women and wasted time. Jen locked the door behind them and leaned against it, heart racing. Why was everyone so desperate to take this piano? She looked at it, really looked at it. The wood was cheap veneer over particle board. The brand stamped inside, Hartwell & Sons, EST 1889. Meant nothing. She'd Googled it and found exactly 2 results, both for defunct piano makers that had closed before World War II. The thing had no value, no historical significance. It was junk, but Eppie had worked at Riverside Bank for 40 years. She'd been careful, meticulous. She'd left everything to Jen and asked for one thing. Don't let them take it. That night, after Lily was asleep, Jen examined the piano by flashlight. The overhead bulb had burned out, and she couldn't afford replacements yet. She ran her hands along the sides, the back, the underside. Nothing unusual, just old wood and dust, and the smell of years. She opened the top panel, shining light into the internal mechanism. The strings were rusty. The hammers were worn. Everything looked exactly as broken as it should. Then she noticed the bench. It was separate from the piano, a simple rectangular box with a missing leg, propped against the wall. Jen pulled it into the light. The seat lifted. Underneath should have been storage for sheet music. But this bench had a false bottom. She could feel it, the slight give when she pressed. She found a butter knife in the kitchen and worked it under the edge. The wood popped up, revealing a hollow space. Inside were letters. Dozens of them, bundled with rubber bands that disintegrated at her touch. All addressed to Beatrice Reeves. All from Riverside Bank, dated between 1968 and 1982. Jen opened the first one. It was a purchase confirmation for bearer bonds. $50,000 worth. The next was the same. And the next. Page after page of purchase confirmations, each one documenting Aunt Bea's systematic conversion of her paychecks into anonymous, portable wealth. Oh my God, Jen whispered. She texted Dr. Margaret Shun, An art history professor, she'd done data entry for during a brief contract job. Dr. Chen knew about valuable things, about authentication. She'd mentioned once that her husband appraised estates. Dr. Chen, this is Jen Reeves. I hope you remember. Me. I need help. I think I found something in my aunt's house. Something valuable. Can your husband look at historical documents? The reply came at 2 a.m. Jen. Of course I remember you. Robert appraises all kinds of estates. He can see you tomorrow. Where are you located? If you're following Jen's story, subscribe now, because what she discovers next will shatter everything she thought she knew about her aunt's quiet life. Robert Chin arrived at 10 a.m., carrying equipment cases and wearing white cotton gloves. Jen had pulled every letter from the bench, laid them across Aunt B.A.'s dining table in chronological order. These are bearer bond purchase confirmations, he said immediately. Your aunt was buying them systematically. Small amounts at first, $5,000, $10,000. Then larger purchases. By 1980, she was buying $100,000 at a time. But where are the actual bonds? Robert looked at the piano. May I? He examined it the way Dr. Rothman had examined Grandma June's paintings, with reverence and careful attention. He tapped the wood, listening. He measured. He ran his hands along the legs. Then he pulled out a small pry bar. Ms. Reeves, these legs are hollow. And they're not original to the piano. Someone retrofitted them. Someone who knew what they were doing. He worked carefully, finding the hidden seams. The first leg was empty. The second held old newspapers. The third wouldn't budge. The fourth came apart like a puzzle box, revealing a cavity stuffed with rolled papers. Robert pulled one out, unrolled it with shaking hands, and went completely still. Ms. Reeves, he said quietly, these are the bonds. And they're still valid. Robert Chin spent 6 hours cataloging the contents of the piano. Each hollow leg held layers of carefully preserved bearer bonds, wrapped in acid-free paper and sealed with wax. Aunt B had created a time capsule, a fortress, a treasure chest disguised as trash. The final count, 847 individual bearer bonds, denominations ranging from $5,000 to $100,000, with a face value of $186 million. But bearer bonds, Robert explained, accrued interest. 40 years of compounding interest. The total value, with accrued interest calculated to today's date, is approximately $372 million, Robert said. But this is complicated. You'll need lawyers. Bearer bonds are legal but unusual. The banks will verify authenticity. The IRS will want their cut. You're looking at months of paperwork. Jen sat on the floor, exactly where she'd collapsed when he'd first said the number. Lily was at school. The house was quiet except for the ticking of Aunt B.A.'s kitchen clock. Why? She asked. Why did she do this? Robert handed her another letter he'd found tucked into the fourth leg. This one wasn't from the bank. It was handwritten, dated 3 months before Aunt B died. Dearest Jennifer, if you're reading this, you kept the piano. Thank you. I knew you would. You were always the one who listened, who didn't dismiss old women and their peculiar ways. I'll tell you what I never told anyone. I grew up with nothing. My father gambled. My mother cleaned houses until her hands bled. I watched her beg for grocery money, watched her humiliation when the answer was no. I swore I'd never be powerless like that. When I started at Riverside Bank in 1967, I was 22 years old and determined. I lived on almost nothing. I saved everything. But I didn't trust banks to hold my money. I worked there. I knew how accounts could be frozen, seized, disputed. I wanted something portable, anonymous, untraceable. Bearer bonds were perfect. I bought them in small amounts at first, then larger. I worked 40 years at that bank, and I converted almost every paycheck into bonds. I lived in this house I'd bought for $12,000, and I waited. For what? I'm not sure. I think I was waiting to not be afraid anymore. But fear has a way of becoming habit. I never spent the money because spending it meant someone knowing I had it. Someone asking questions. Someone taking it away. I know what people said about me. Crazy B. Weird B. The old woman who hoarded buttons and kept a broken piano. Let them talk. I had something none of them could touch. I'm leaving it to you because you're like me. Dismissed, overlooked, underestimated. Your mother thinks you're impractical. Your siblings think you're floundering. Your ex-husband took everything and left you to raise Lily alone. The world tells women like us we're not smart enough, not savvy enough, not worth listening to. Prove them wrong, Jennifer. Take this money and build the life I was too afraid to build. Don't hide. Don't wait. Don't let fear win. And remember, being called crazy just means you see what others miss. All my love." Aunt B. Jen read it 3 times, tears blurring the words. She thought about Aunt B sitting alone in this house for 50 years, surrounded by wealth she never touched. Afraid to live. Afraid to trust. Afraid of being powerless again. She wouldn't make the same mistake. The verification process took 14 weeks. Teams from 3 different banks examined the bonds under magnification, verified serial numbers against decades-old records, confirmed authenticity. The IRS took their substantial cut. Legal fees consumed millions. But when the dust settled, Jen's account showed a number that still didn't feel real. $284 million. She paid off the studio apartment debt. She renovated Aunt Ba's bungalow. New roof, new foundation, new everything. But she kept the bones of the house intact. She hired Robert Chin as a consultant to help her set up proper asset management. She established a foundation in Aunt Ba's name for financial literacy and independence for women escaping poverty. But the phone call she'd been dreading came on a Tuesday afternoon. Her mother, "Jennifer, I've been hearing the most ridiculous rumors. Someone said you came into money, a lot of money, from Ba's house. And I have to say, if that's true, we need to discuss fair distribution to the family. After all, B was my aunt too. The piano was mine." Jen said, her voice steady. "Aunt B left it to me. She left everything to me. And before you ask, no, you're not getting a share. None of you are. That's incredibly selfish. We're family. You call me crazy for keeping it. You hired piano movers to take it against my will. You dismissed me the same way you dismissed Aunt B." Jen looked out the window at the renovated bungalow, at Lily playing in the new backyard they've fenced. "I'm not giving you $1. But I'll give you some advice. Stop underestimating the women in this family." She hung up. Then she blocked the number. 6 months later, Jen stood in the living room of the bungalow, now beautifully restored, the floors gleaming, the walls painted soft yellow, and looked at the piano. She'd had it professionally restored, every key fixed, every string replaced. It would never be valuable, would never be a collector's piece. But it was playable now. Lily sat at the bench, practicing scales. Her piano teacher said she had promise. She practiced every day, her small hands growing confident on the keys that had once been broken. "Mom," Lily looked up. "My teacher asked how we could afford a piano." I didn't know what to say. Jen sat beside her daughter on the bench. "Tell her your great-great-aunt B saved her whole life and gave it to us. Tell her that's what women in our family do. We save, we plan, we survive. And we take care of each other." Lily nodded solemnly, then returned to her scales. That evening, after Lily was asleep in her own bedroom, with walls and a door and everything a 9-year-old girl deserved, Jen sat at the kitchen table and finalized the foundation paperwork. The Beatrice Rees Foundation for Women's Financial Independence would launch next month, offering microloans, financial education, and emergency grants to women escaping poverty or abuse. She'd funded it with $50 million. Enough to help thousands of women. Enough to prove Aunt Ba's life had meant something beyond fear and hiding. Jen's phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Chen. "Robert and I would love to take you and Lily to dinner next week. We know a wonderful place. Our treat. Though I suppose you could afford to buy the restaurant now." Jen smiled. She'd made friends. Real ones. People who'd helped her when she was nobody, who celebrated with her now that she was somebody. She walked to the living room and sat at the piano. She couldn't play well. A few chords, a simple melody Lily had taught her. But she pressed the keys anyway, filling Aunt Ba's house with music it had never held. Outside, the neighborhood was quiet. The bungalow's lights glowed warm against the evening dark. Inside, everything that mattered was safe. A daughter with a future, a foundation that would help thousands, a life built from the ashes of dismissal and doubt. And in the corner, beautifully restored, stood the piano everyone had called worthless. Jen thought about her mother's call, about the moving men who'd tried to take it, about all the voices that had called her crazy. She thought about Aunt B, working 40 years at a bank, converting every paycheck into bonds, building a fortune inside a piece of furniture everyone wanted to throw away. She thought about being underestimated, overlooked, dismissed. and how being called crazy was sometimes just another word for being right. The piano's hollow legs were empty now, their treasure distributed to accounts and foundations and futures. But the instrument itself remained, a monument to patient work and quiet defiance. To women who save, who plan, who survive, who prove everyone wrong without saying a word. Jen closed the keyboard cover and turned out the lights. Tomorrow she'd meet with the foundation board. Next week, they'd award the first grants. Next month, Lily's new school started, a good one, with art programs and music and teachers who believed in possibility. But tonight, in this house that everyone had dismissed, Jen simply breathed. The eviction notice that had once haunted her was long gone, thrown away with all the other artifacts of a life she'd survived. She'd kept the piano. She'd trusted Aunt B. And Aunt B had been right all along. Being called crazy just meant you saw what others missed.